TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift's Line of David, whose first crop colts on the Derby Trail include California Derby winner Cross the Line and Grade 1 placed Firing Line.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, as a racing fan, what a weekend of racing, man. Not just for the 3-year-olds. You know, I know we're covering the Triple Crown Trail right now, but as a racing fan, wow, what a great weekend.
It gets you excited about the year. I mean, let's be honest. This past weekend really kick-started 2015. You know, those post-Breeders' Cup Blues, I think we can put behind us now. And we saw a great race, that the showdown we've been waiting for with California Chrome Share Believe.
Yep.
We saw Constitution, how brilliant he was in the Don against Lay. And then obviously the 3-year-olds in action. I mean, I think this past weekend really kick-started the racing season for this year.
You know, we're still early enough in the year that we can see young talent kind of show up and still have a chance to get to the Derby gate. You know, it was something we talked about in the Withers with El Kabir. He had a lot of form, a lot of class, but we thought there was some young guns coming in there that had a shot. Turned out to be true.
Yeah, you never know exactly what you're going to get. I mean, you looked at a horse like Far From Over. We talked about him last week, but here's a horse that gutted it out in, you know, sort of a mediocre first-time maiden win, well-bred horse, has the pedigree to run all day. So you had to give him credit for winning first time out, and you also had to give him credit in the fact that Pletcher took a first-time starter, ran him in a great stake in his second start. I think that endorsement shows you how much they probably like this colt, and you saw for good reason there that maybe that maiden race wasn't what he wanted to do, battling it out, sprinting. He wants to make one run like his sire did in a 2-turn race, and we saw that from Far From Over. I actually think him breaking bad from the gate benefited him, because then he was able to save ground. He wasn't going to, you know, contend the early pace, because I think if he goes up there and tries to run with El Kabir and some of those other horses, he's going to be a lot more flat in the stretch. And I thought that, you know, when I talk about El Kabir and those horses, they didn't look like they were going to finish the last eighth of a mile. I mean, they looked pretty taxed turning for home. It really set it up for Far From Over to run by him late.
Let's take a look at the TCI top 10 real quick, and let's just find out, did the colt do enough to get on the TCI top 10 this week?
Well, the Beyer was actually very good. A 96 Beyer in your second start, first around 2 turns, you know, especially people making a big deal of him breaking bad from the gate. I mean, you have to be impressed by the upside this colt has. Again, he has a pedigree and a profile to run all day with the connections. You have to be excited about his future. But again, we made our initial assessment of our top 10. I'm not making changes unless I'm really impressed with a horse. I mean, I kind of view him similarly to Ocean Knight. I mean, another horse with good connections, good classic pedigree, you know, won a great stake second time out. To me, there's a similar profile, so I'm not going to bump Ocean Knight for Far From Over yet, but we'll see what happens down the road in the Gotham.
All right, another
Matter of fact, they should face each other in the Gotham. I think Ocean Knight is going to run against Far From Over in the Gotham, because Stone Street wants to run their first string colt with Windstar, and that's Carpe Diem in the Tampa Bay Derby.
Interesting. All right, well, the other thing I noticed here on the TCI Top 10, no movement this week, including Dortmund and Firing Line, 2 colts that were in action again in the Robert Lewis. Joel, that race was very intriguing to me. I thought Firing Line had put Dortmund away. I mean, like, I thought he was going to win by 5. And, man, I don't know what happened there in the stretch. What do you think?
And that's why Firing Line is going to stay at 9, because he just hasn't shown that mental development yet. Dortmund staying at 5. Again, we're staying with our initial evaluations for now. And we knew these 2 colts were hard to separate. We knew that in the Low South Futurity when they finished very close to each other. But I liked Firing Line's upside. You know, the fact that he was that game in the Low South Futurity, first time around 2 turns, I thought he would develop into a 3-year-old and have that killer instinct. We just have not seen it yet. I mean, you're right, let's go now to the race replay here, and we hit the play button, them turn for home. Look, Dortmund's under the whip.
I think it's over.
He can't keep up. It looks like it's over. I mean, look, Gary Stevens very confident here. He makes the lead, and at this point, I think he's going to open up win by 2 or 3. But I'll give Dortmund some credit. I'm not going to pin the blame all on Firing Line hanging here, even though I think maybe there was something to do with that. It was a fast race, which indicates to me that Dortmund really dug in here. And the one thing I'll say about Dortmund, I don't think Los Al is his track. I don't think Santa Anita's his track. He's a 17 hands horse. Running the turns, you know, when you're torquing your body running the turns at that, you know, sort of size, I think he's better for the bigger turn tracks like Churchill Downs. We saw him run so well there, where he's able to extend that stride on those long turns. We saw here when he swaps to his right lead, he's able to run straight and extend his stride. We saw the talent in Dortmund for him to be able to come back, and the Beyer was good. It's a 103 Beyer, so give Firing Line some credit that he ran a 102 Beyer in his own right in here. So I thought it was a pretty good race.
Well, these 2 are the class, no doubt, in California. I mean, they were 21 lengths in front of the horses that were behind them.
Yeah.
You know, and we talked to the farm, we talked to Spendthrift, they've talked to the connections. Looks like Firing Line just hung. He's going to be fine.
Right.
You know, it's just immature, like you're saying. So it's going to be interesting to see him, how much he matures in the next race.
He'll be the favorite in the San Felipe more than likely next month because American Pharoah is probably going out of town in the Rebel. Dortmund's going to pass that race and go straight into the Santa Anita Derby. So Firing Line will get his opportunity to take another step forward next month.
All right, one more thing I noticed on the TCI Top 10 before we preview these races. I just got to ask you, you left Texas Red in at number 2. Some of the things I'm reading, a little concerning. I mean, it's one thing to be able to continue to train, but they're talking about taking him off the track and trying to swim this horse up to his next prep.
Well, he's out of training for the rest of February. So if you do the math, that's basically missing 3 weeks at the minimum, and they're going to try to put him on the aqua tread to keep him, you know, try to keep his fitness level up. I do think he has a ton of foundation.
Sure.
He's basically been in training since last summer at Arlington Park, all the way through the San Vicente and his prep there. You know, I've liked the schedule he's been on, but, you know, the bottom line is, John, anytime you miss training this time of year with a horse like that, I mean, just look at history. Tell me when the last time it's worked out for a Derby horse.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't work out. History shows that. So I'm very concerned about Texas Red now, and I left him in the 2 spot because I've given the horse the benefit of the doubt, and I really regret that. I mean, I think next week I'm going to have to really reassess the top 10. I think I'm going to have to drop him just on the risk of him. Again, I'm not worried about points. All he has to do is come back in the Arkansas Derby first week of April or when it's run and run in the top 4 or 5, and he's going to get enough points, in my opinion, to make the Derby field. However, just on the premise that history suggests that any kind of hiccup like that is not good, the fact that he's missing 3 weeks off the track, I'm concerned. I don't think he deserves a 2 spot anymore.
All right, let me remind you, Fleet Alex, I mean, a tremendous athlete. If he's anything like his dad, in the Preakness, he put his nose in the dirt. That's not supposed to work out for you either. He found a way to make that work.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I like the horse quite a bit. That's why I didn't move him on initial reaction, but I think he needs to move.
All right, well, let's talk about this weekend's races real quick. You know, it's the last of the 10-point rounds. So these races don't traditionally have, you know, major effect on the Derby, but let's talk about the Southwest on Monday and the El Camino Real Derby. Tell me, who do you like in these races?
Yeah, the points aren't a big factor right now. Next week, Risen Star Fountain of Youth, when it bumps to 50, that's when we're really starting to talk about points. And not even worth talking about Derby points right now. There might be 3 that are in the gate as of now. The other 17 are wide open whether or not they're going to make the Kentucky Derby gate at 20. But yeah, when I look at the El Camino Real, John, it's a tap at a race. You get a lot of turf and synthetic type horses like Conquest Typhoon and Hero has some class. But the horse that intrigues me, and the reason we're talking about it is, even though it is a points race, Cross the Line for Jerry Hollendorf. I mean, they were bragging about how good this horse was breezing at the Barrett sale last year, and something came up. He wound up being an RNA, but he's a half to Antonia. Should love the dirt, even though he's never run on it yet in his racing life, but he's a progressive colt, has improved going around 2 turns. He won the Cal Derby. If he can again step up, win the El Camino Real, then I think there's a chance he could run in a race maybe like the Santa Anita Derby or wherever they decide to, you know, step into deeper waters next time out and prove to have a little more quality than your typical El Camino Real Derby winner.
All right, in the Southwest, I know there's a couple of horses that you're looking at. One that I'm watching is Mr. Z. This is a horse that just, Joel, he's been so close in some major races. I mean, this has to be a breakthrough race. You know, Wayne Lucas at Oaklawn, this is his time, I think.
He's run a lot, and they made an excuse for him last time in that he needs some dental work. They were working on a different bridle for the horse. You know, I look at the last race, and he needs some sort of excuse to step back up. We know he has that back class, but I didn't think the Smarty Jones was that good. I mean, Bayard was Asmussen's. He's a second-string colt for Asmussen. I mean, just look at the way he's been campaigning at Remington Park. He's a listed stakes horse. Look at Asmussen's first-string colt coming out of Grade 1. That's Bold Conquest. Has a few bullet works coming into the race. You know, Steve's horses off a layoff are usually sharp out of the gates. What you need to be in the Southwest Stakes going that short stretch mile at Oaklawn, I think you want to be stalking the pace. I think he's going to do that. And I see a race full of basically devoid speed. I don't see, you know, many legitimate speed horses in here. I see a lot of off-the-pace types. So I think Bold Conquest has a huge edge to start his year off properly in the Southwest Stakes for Steve Asmussen. Another horse that intrigues me on the class drop as well is the Truth or Else. I mean, I love the way this horse broke his maiden at Belmont, and he kind of got in some deep waters there, ran respectively. He too comes from off the pace, so I'm concerned about his closing style in here with the short stretch, but I think the Truth or Else is a colt that, again, I think if he runs well in here, he could be a contender maybe next time out in the Rebel Stakes when they go a little further. but then he'll have to probably face American Pharaoh.
All right, well, thank you, Joel.
Yep.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap the last of the 10-point races, and we're going to start getting into the 50-point races with the Fountain of Youth and the Risen Star.